Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So this Shabbat, around the country, hundreds of different rabbis and hundreds of different synagogues are all going to be speaking on one single line of Torah. And as nice as it would be and as tasty as it would be for me to be able to do the exact same thing and to pontificate from the bima about how I feel about this week or about this election or this inauguration, I thought I would do something a little bit different this week. Because at the end of the day, my rabbinate means a lot of different things to me, but most important, I became a rabbi because I believe so fully and so truly in giving Judaism and the skills of Judaism and the depth and the profundity of Judaism to the congregants and to the congregation and to Jews everywhere. So instead of listening to me talk about my thoughts on this parasha for 10-15 minutes this morning, we're going to go and we're going to try a little bit of our own parshanut, of going and dissecting that one line of Torah that so many different rabbis throughout the country are going to be doing this morning. So, before we do that, just if you want to prepare yourselves, we're going to be looking in the Eitz Chaim, that we're going to be on page 318 in the red book in front of you. But before we do that, I'm going to guide us through the process of what it means to be able to dissect the line of Torah. Because we think about it as something that we read, the Torah says something, we move forward with it, and whatever our interpretation is, that's how we progress. But the rabbis of the Talmud, the rabbis who have given us so much of our parshanut, our midrash, our agadah, our different examples, our different ways of examining Torah, have their own process of what it means to actually dig into a line of Torah. So I'm going to introduce really quickly, I know this is not the easiest thing in the world to see, but as Rabbi said, this is what happens when we're all spread out. I'm sorry. If anyone wants to move forward, I'm not going to stop you. So the rabbis have this way of looking at a line of Torah that they call Pardes. So, for anyone who can't see, this is my horrible Hebrew handwriting. This is a Pei, Resh, Dalet, and a Samek. In Hebrew, this would spell out Pardes. Now, does anyone know what the word Pardes means in Hebrew? I heard orchard. Okay, so this is this beautiful idea of the rabbis have when you're digging through a line of Torah, you're actually digging through the orchard. You're digging you can actually see yourself picking fruit from trees. So this is kind of the image that the rabbis wanted. And the rabbi's favorite thing, their most beloved thing to do is to be able to find fruit from even the most mundane of sources. And the second thing that the rabbis love are acronyms. So, Pardes is an acronym for how we dissect Torah. So the first thing that the rabbis look at is this letter Pei. If we see the Pei equals the word pshat. Does anyone know what pshat means? Simple, okay? So the first level, the first layer that we have of dissecting a line of text is called the pshat level. This is the most superficial level of the text. So if we read a line and it says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, God created the heavens and the earth, the pshat meaning is, God created the heavens and the earth. That's the line. We take it at face value. God created the heavens, God created the earth. The second level of Pardes is a resh that means remez. And a remez, I'm not going to ask for anyone to translate it because it's not easy to translate. It would probably be, a bad translation would be like a hint. So you're taking the pshat level and you're going a little bit further. You're finding something within the text, within the words that are hinting at something else. So Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, God created the heavens and the earth. We might hint at a little bit something, okay, so God's creating heavens and earth and separating them. How is that process done? We can start to think a little bit more, start getting our mind to think about what does it actually mean to create the heavens and the earth? Create from what? We have this idea of creatio ex nihilo, of creating from nothing, but also in the Bible we know that is created from tohu vabohu. Everything is that formless and chaotic. So that's remez, going a bit further, trying to think about what that creation might look like. Our next step is to go into Dras. So Dras is even deeper. It really means to seek, to dig, to find, to be able to, I guess if we're going to be looking at that image of an orchard, of Pardes, this means to not only just take the fruit of Torah, but to open it up and to really find the different seeds, the different parts, the pulp of the fruit that is making up Torah. So if we use this example for Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, God created the heavens and the earth. We go into Dras, we see that Bereshit bara, it says Bereshit and not Barashit. It does not say in the beginning, it says in beginning. So what does that mean? There's no definite beginning, and we can think about the different ways that we can interpret this and make it into something meaningful for us. Maybe there is no firm beginning to a lot of the things that we do in our life. There is only a continuation of what God has already created and put forth in front of us. And the last category is called Sowed. And Sowed quite literally means secret. It is the furthest layer down in our examination of text that we get to a point where this is probably the most mystical of our sources, of our ways of interpreting text, to a point where it's this kind of drashing, it's this kind of examination of the Torah that the rabbis say you shouldn't even try to do until you're 40 because it's so dangerous, so filled with different ramifications. So there's a story of the rabbis who go and they ascend to Pardes, into the orchard, and some of them, they take these different approaches, and one of them loses their mind, another one dies instantly. Only Rabbi Akiva is the one who can actually come back out in peace the way that he entered, because he was capable of drashing Sowed. Okay? So what this idea is, if we're assembling these, again, we have Pshat, the simple meaning of the text, the superficial meaning. Remez, which is hinting, going a little bit deeper. Drash, going even further than that, digging through the fruit to try to find the pulp, to find the nectar, to find the sweetness that we can interpret into our lives. And Sowed, to find some cosmic secret that's bigger than all of us and bigger than we could possibly imagine. When we put all of those together, we have Pardes, which again means an orchard, but it's also the foundation of another word that we might know really well, paradise. So the word Pardes means orchard, but it is also equated, especially in rabbinic tradition, with this concept of Gan Eden, that if you make it to Pardes, you are actually in heaven. You are in something that is beyond any kind of just normal earthly thoughts and earthly physical space. You are in this realm of something more mystical, more beautiful, more holy, and ultimately at peace. So we talk about this idea of studying Torah is actually it's a taste, it's a hint of Shemayim, of Pardes, of paradise. So, having these little skills to be able to start looking at this, I want us to look at this one line of text. So if you turn to page 318 into your Eitz Chaim, you will see in chapter 1, verse 8, the Hebrew reads, Vayakam melech hadash al Mitzrayim asher lo yada et Yosef. A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. And the way that I opened up what I'm saying this morning is because I believe that there are going to be hundreds of rabbis talking about this one line this morning. And I also bet you that there are going to be about 100 different interpretations of that one line this morning. So what I would like to challenge you to do right now is turn to a partner, turn to someone you're sitting next to, and look at that line. You don't have to look at it in the Hebrew. You don't have to, if you don't want, or if you don't want to look at it in the English and only look at it in the Hebrew, please feel free. But the idea, what we're going to try to do is to use 1 or 2 minutes, read that line to each other. This is what we call kavruta learning, turning to our partner, learning together. And the idea is to try to find something in any of those categories that you want. So just to be clear, none of those categories are bad. None of those categories are negative. One of our most famous commentators, Rashi, is famous for giving you the pshat, giving you the simple explanation, because sometimes the simple explanation is more difficult to uncover than a deeper explanation. So right now, take a couple of minutes, read that line to each other over. You can feel free to be loud, feel free to argue, feel free to talk about something that if it's touching you emotionally, think about where you are in your life, about where our country is, about where we are as a community, and we'll come back together in 1 or 2 minutes. Feel free, and I will give us a little I'll give us like a 30-second warning, okay? Okay, so finish whatever thought, whatever sentence you're on, and let's come back together. So let's hear some ideas. Let's hear some different thoughts that came up while you were studying in your chavruta. A new king arose who did not know Joseph. What could this mean? There's a new guy in charge. Great. Perfect. I like it. Lo yada Yosef does not mean that he did not know Joseph by name, but that he didn't care about anything that Joseph brought ahead of time. It doesn't matter. He feels no obligation to the tradition that Joseph brought, which makes it so easy for this new melech, this new king, to go into a different way, and a way that ultimately leads into slavery. Beautiful. I love it. Which level were you on? Great. Absolutely, absolutely. So this concept of Eitz Chaim, of we're going into a different level of saying that what's so beautiful about our Torah is that we can easily see that this one line, a new king arose, okay, that we can equate that with an inauguration of a new president, but there's also something so deep and important that any time, regardless, there's always going to be a sermon. There's always going to be a drash, because Torah speaks to us where we are in our lives every single time we open it up. Beautiful. I love it. Anyone else? Great. So, okay. So this interpretation would say, it's similar to this idea of a new king rose who did not know Joseph. He may have known Joseph, but he has a different mindset. So this new king is someone who we could say is someone who's a nationalist, who only puts Egyptians first and doesn't care about the fact that there are other cultures living under him at the time, right? So he doesn't care about the slavery of the Hebrews or anyone else who might be in their midst. He's actually threatened by the idea of Hebrews increasing in population. Or it's politically expedient. Right, absolutely. Great. Any other last thoughts? Okay, so I know that I told you that I wasn't going to stand on the bima and pontificate, but I also want to read in my interpretation of this one line, because I think that this one line, I have no idea which level I'm going to go to, by the way, so you'll have to let me know. But I think that what we're doing here is looking at something that's so incredibly important. So, for those of you who are Hebrew speakers and know a little bit of the Hebrew, if we look at page 318, and it says, Vayakhan melech hadash al Mitzrayim asher lo yada et Yosef, that this new king did not know Joseph. But for us Hebrew speakers and people that know the Hebrew, there are two different words that we use, two different verbs for knowing someone. We can use the word ladat, to know, is usually a source of information. But when we know a person, that verb is la'akir. When we know someone. So if I say, I know my friend, or I know my partner, or I know my family, I would use the verb la'akir. But to la'adat, to know someone like that, means that you know someone very, very intimately, so deeply, that you know their inner and outer ways that they work, how they work in the world, how they understand their relationship to themselves, to you, to their families, to God. It is something that is so intimate and so personal. So when I read this line and I see that the verb here is ladat, that this new king did not know Joseph, it makes me see and makes me understand that he did not know Joseph and he didn't know the Hebrews in general. Because if he did, they wouldn't be slaves. And what this tells me is that this new king, this new Pharaoh, could have used this very same method of Pardes, not when it comes just to text, but when it comes to people, and when it comes to the relationships that we make in the world. Because I think that what we're doing here applies to what we're doing here. What we're doing not just as a community, but every time we encounter anyone in the world, every time we start a new relationship, every time we put ourselves in the public and we put ourselves in face of another person, we have the possibility of doing Pardes. And the way that we do that is we go through those same steps with the same patience and the same understanding of knowing that maybe the exterior of someone might seem like something that we don't really like or appreciate. That outer layer of Peshat is one part of who a person is. But if we go a little bit deeper and we go into the remez, if we go into the hint of what that person is, we're finding something a little bit deeper. And if we go into Dras and we're going even further and we start to know that person even more, then we might uncover something else about them, some more complexities. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be something we always agree with or like or appreciate, but we realize that people are more complex than that. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is uncover Sowed. Because there's something cosmic, there's something truly magical about when we have a relationship that the world just seems to make more sense because we have formed that relationship with them. And that could be friends, it can be family, it can be our spouses, it can be our significant others, it can be teachers, it can be strangers. But the idea is that we are capable of having this encounter with every single person that we meet. But we have to be receptive, and they have to be receptive, otherwise it's not going to work. But that's what it means, I believe, so truly, that that's what it means, that we're not trying to aspire to la'akir someone, we're aspiring to know them, to really know them. Because if we know someone truly and fully, then we have a different concept of paradise. A paradise here on earth that we can make, that we can understand one another. So I'll end with one quick little story. I know that I've told this story a couple times, so if you've heard it before and you've heard me saying it, I apologize for the repetition. But I think that this encapsulates what we're studying today. So the story is of a rabbi who, in his small shtibel, sees that there's a man who he hasn't seen in synagogue for a long time. And this is an older gentleman, and this gentleman who, when he was healthy, used to be such a fixture in the synagogue, used to be such an important part of the shul, and the rabbi wants to honor him. So the rabbi gives him the honor of Chagba, of lifting the Torah scroll. And he's sitting back and he asks the man, "Are you sure that you can do this? We want to give you this honor, but we want to make sure that you're capable of doing this." The man says, "I can do it. So he lifts up the Chagba, and everyone has their fingers up into the open Torah scroll. And as the man is turning around to show the congregation the open Torah, he begins to trip and stumble. And we all know that if a Torah scroll drops and hits the floor, it's up to the congregation or anyone who is watching that there is a fast of 40 days. And the rabbi sees that this man is slipping and starting to fall. And he runs and he sprints to the bima, and the rabbi catches the man, and the Torah falls to the floor. And the man starts to cry, and the rabbi is holding on to him. And he says, thank you, Rabbi, thank you for catching me, but you should have caught the Torah." And the rabbi responds by saying, "I did." And the way that we interact with one another is exactly how we're reading Torah, because the text of Torah, that open scroll of Torah, this book of Torah in front of us, it is the exact same thing, and it has the exact same depth and profundity of the Torah that we learn and the Torah that we experience when we encounter someone else. That everyone has that depth, that has that beauty, has the fruit of the orchard of Pardes in front of them. On this Shabbat, my blessing to all of us is that we can take our time, be patient with ourselves and with those around us, that we can navigate and walk through the orchard of Pardes, so that we can know ourselves, so that we can know those around us, and so that we can get to paradise through those relationships. Shabbat Shalom.